you done now?
As they said in the film, Back to the Future, where we're going, we don't need roads.
Oh, Brad, what have you done now?
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit. Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Back to the Future, the podcast, the only podcast looking back in time at the greatest film trilogy of all time, Back to the Future. I am your friend in time, Brad Gilmore, and season 4 keeps rocking and rolling. We keep rolling on. Right now, we're going to jump right into the conversation. You heard him on part 1, Stephen Clarke, the curator of BackToTheFuture.com, the official website. We just left off on talking about Future Day. Stephen's got more to talk about that awesome day in 2015, and much, much more. So please enjoy part 2 of our interview and discussion with Stephen Clarke.
I totally agree with you. And it's, for me, having lived it for so long and been involved with it in one aspect or another for 25 years, it's very gratifying to see a lot of that stuff come about. In addition to the website, I also run the official Twitter account, and it was kind of an organic thing. I just been kind of, just like the website, just kind of organically running it and trying to get followers. And leading up to the day before, October 20, I think October 19th, 20th, and 21st, all leading up to that, I know overnight our followers like quadrupled in size. We got like 40,000 followers in like a 24-hour period, which was just unbelievable because all of a sudden everybody was jumping on the bandwagon finally and rediscovering this great story again. And so it was really, I was actually, like I said, I was in Los Angeles. I woke up that morning and had probably 10 phone messages from media wanting me to do interviews. And I'm thinking, you've waited till the day of to try to line up interviews. And I'm sorry, but, this is like going to be one of the busiest days of my career with Back to the Future. I'm sorry. These interviews should have taken place a week ago, and you just run it instead of waiting until that morning to try to get in touch with me to do an interview. So unfortunately they didn't get an interview with me that day, but yeah, it was very gratifying to finally see it paying off. That I've been carrying this torch for so long and thinking, sometimes you think you're the only one out here doing it, and then to see all of a sudden even the White House proclaim that it's Back to the Future Day. So that was just really surreal.
Yeah, I mean, it was a surreal day, I think, for everybody. So let's go back a little bit. So you said you've been in the Back to the Future brand, I guess, for 25 years.
Yes, yes.
So you said you started with a newsletter?
I did. After I went on the ride for the first time in January of '92, like I said, I came back and it was just nonstop. For me, I came back and thought, I have got to find a way to get a video copy of the ride footage. And I made it my mission to find a copy of that ride footage because I didn't want to have, every time I wanted to see it, I didn't want to have to go down to Florida and, pay admission to the park to get in and see it. To me, the ride was part 4. I needed to have that in my possession. So I made repeated calls out to Universal, both in Orlando and out in LA, and this went on for months, throughout January on into the summer, leading into the fall. And one day, I happened to be making one of those calls, and somebody transferred me to Bob Gale's office. And
Wow.
at the time, Bob still had an office on the back lot at Universal because he was working on season 2 of the cartoon series. And so that fateful day, talking to Bob on the phone and just kind of, it didn't work. He did not send me a copy of the ride footage, but his secretary at the time connected me with another gentleman who was kind of in the same boat I was in, but he lived actually in California, in Los Angeles. And me and this other gentleman started up a new fan club because, if you recall, back in 89 and 90, there was an official fan club that only ran for 4 issues, and it was primarily made to market the films and the ride. And so once the 2 films had been through theaters and the ride opened, the purpose of that magazine and that fan club really had gone away because the filmmakers had made it crystal clear they were not doing any more films. But the cartoon series, the ride were both out, and so that magazine just kind of went away. And so me and this other gentleman kind of picked up the pieces and decided, okay, we're gonna keep going with this thing. And so it was very amateurish at the time. We did the best we could with computer software at the time, but at the peak of it, we had about 500 subscribers worldwide. And again, this is pre-internet. So we ran 21 issues. It started out 6 times a year and then went down to quarterly before we folded it because the internet came around in 95. I started a real simple web page, just putting stuff online that was just kind of a compliment at the time to the newsletter. And then when we came to the realization that, hey, by the time you put something out in a newsletter, it could be up to 3 months old. Everybody has already heard it or read about it by then. And so in early 96, just kind of folded the magazine newsletter and just went online entirely. So that was in 97 when the domain was launched, but a web page kind of started 2 years earlier in 95.
And was this, bttf.net? Was that what we're talking about?
It's actually bttf.com.
It started off .com.
Yeah, it was .com at the time. So bttf.com was what I registered that domain. And, at the time, I had some dealings with Universal, not a lot. I had met a lot of the cast through interviews we had done through our newsletter. And so, but I registered bttf.com, and BackToTheFuture.com was available for me to register, but I was too scared to register that because I thought, BTTF is not a trademark name or anything.
Okay,
it's
yeah.
not a mark, but Back to the Future is. So I'm not inviting trouble. But so I operated on bttf.com for well over a decade and a half, almost 2 decades, and then acquired through some different channels registration for backtothefuture.com about 5 years ago. So it just made sense once I made that acquisition to move everything off of that, because my goal had always been for this to become an official sanctioned website. And, in 2015, it finally did. So it was in 2015 is when it was officially sanctioned by, was that Universal? That was Universal. Universal and I partnered on the 30th anniversary. And so if you bought the DVDs or Blu-rays in 2015, even though it's very tiny to see, you can look on the back of the packaging and you'll see that the website, backtothefuture.com, is printed on the back of every single DVD and Blu-ray that was released in North America.
Well, that's
and
pretty cool.
and continue. Oh yeah, I mean, it was very gratifying to have done this for so long, and for finally Universal to recognize those efforts and say, okay, let's partner on this campaign, and let's use your domain as the official website. And so, and I hope we're not done. We're beyond 2015 now, and I'm hoping that some other opportunities will come about. I'm currently working on a new design for the website. It's kind of slow going, but there is a new design that is in process. Progress is still in the early stages. I've got some screenshots and some concepts of things I want to do with it, and I'm very excited about it. But the website entirely exists through merchandise sales, and so when merchandise isn't being bought, and sales are slow, then the website design go slower. So because all that funds into that, but I digress. But yeah, the website became official in 2015. Bob Gale and a lot of the cast considered the website under bttf.com official long before then.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
It finally became official through Universal just 2 years ago.
So when was it that you actually made contact with Bob Gale and I guess the IP owners of Back to the Future? And when did you finally kind of come into contact with them and they say, yeah, we're going to use this as the official channel for all things Back to the Future?
Well, it's kind of been kind of an unwritten understanding for quite some time. Just working with Bob. Bob and I first met in person for the very first time at the DVD kickoff party for the original DVDs in 2002. So that was the very first time I ever went to California, was for the backlot party that Universal put on to release. Because I actually worked on the DVDs, but I say that was first time. It was actually the second time I went to Los Angeles, because Universal brought me out to California 2 years earlier to start working on the DVDs in 2000.
What did you do on the DVDs?
I wrote the pop-up trivia that's on the pop-up trivia. It's called Universal's Did You Know That? And it's just a pop-up trivia thing. So as you're playing the movies, you can turn on that feature. And so I wrote all that back in 2000, almost 2 decades ago, which is mind-blowing. It's been that long ago. But started writing it in August of 2000, and then we had a delay of the release, and then it didn't pick back up until 2002, and I finished it for all 3 movies. And so Bob and I met in person, and and it was an opportunity for me to meet a lot of the other casts for the first time in person. But I had met several other cast members at conventions. Tom Wilson, and I know him very well. He and I are very close friends, and he and I had done some shows together. Been to Claudia Wells. Several other cast members have been at some DeLorean shows that I had met in person, but they all kind of looked to my website as the official source, and continue to this day to give me information about activities and movies they're working on, and events that they're going to be at, and conventions they're signing at, and things like that. So they continue to, it's been well over 2 decades of trust and partnerships on other projects that have continued that relationship, business relationship as well as a personal friendship relationship. So, but it's been. There wasn't really any one specific time when it, back in those days, that it just, okay, this is official. It just kind of grew. Again, a kind of a organic thing.
I'm sure though, and I'm sure you obviously experienced more than I have, but I'm when I've had people on the show like Claudia Wells or Harry Waters Jr. or Jeffrey Wiseman, whoever it is a cool experience to say, oh wow, these are the people who were in these movies that I've obsessed over for so long. I mean, I'm sure you had a couple of those kind of like, wow, I'm actually sitting here talking to whomever it be, Bob Gale or Chris Lloyd or whomever. Yeah, right.
It's I mean, and I still get that way when I'm around Chris Lloyd. So
Chris Lloyd is by far my favorite.
Many times, but Chris is a real sweet man. He is just so intimidating. but that's entirely on me. He's really not intimidating. He's very easy to talk to. I always find myself when I'm there to talk to him, I don't know what to say. But he and I aren't close like I am with a lot of the other cast members. So I was just in Los Angeles a couple of months ago, and I got called up with Bob and Claudia. Went by Claudia's store. She runs a clothing store in Studio City, and I went by and visited her for a few hours and talked. And so we're very personal level friendship with several of the cast members, but I've met Michael J. Fox a few times and interviewed him, and so I'm not on a first name basis with Chris and Michael, but they know who I am, but I don't have the same kind of relationship with them that I do with several others, and so it's very gratifying. Yeah, I mean, when you first start meeting some of these people, it's very surreal. You're thinking, here I am sitting down. I mean, the very first time I met Tom Wilson was very surreal. We met at a convention, one of the very first conventions I ever did, and that's been 16 years ago. And I brought him in to do a signing in my booth, and we hit it. And we were already friends by phone and email prior to that, but we're very, very good friends. And so we hit it off in person very, very well. And we have a lot of laughs every time we're together. And Tom's the best. Tom is the best. He's just so funny and so genuinely caring and just the nicest guy in the world. So, but yeah, when you're have that opportunity, and I know I'm very blessed and very lucky to have been able to build those relationships with a lot of these folks in Hollywood and call them personal friends. But looking back on it, I can remember how nervous I was at the time. But those butterflies go away after a while once you're getting to know somebody real well. So. But yeah, I mean, it was a very surreal experience with each one. I can remember the very first time and this was back in the day when I was running the newsletter, where I had requested an interview with Leah Thompson. And I can remember one Sunday morning waking up and going in my office to check email, and the answer machine was flashing, and lo and behold, she had called and left a voice message, and I just, wow. And so, it's just that, your heart just all of a sudden drops into your stomach, and you're just thinking, wow, I can't believe she has called me. So, but yeah, it's funny. It's just, but they're all very sweet. I have not met anybody associated with Back to the Future who was not just genuinely kind and caring and giving. They're just so wonderful people, and I'm very blessed to call them friends.
Yeah, everyone I've talked to and met with, the series, everyone's super giving, super, honest and friendly and helpful, and it is a really cool thing. I work in majority of the time I work in pro wrestling, and just to relate to you meeting Chris Lloyd, I remember I was backstage at this WWE event, and I was in catering, and I stepped out into the hallway, and I literally bumped into Vince McMahon. And for me, I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And, we sat and talked for a minute, but it is a little intimidating when you meet these people. And Chris Lloyd's like de facto, like I when I was a kid, I always remember like every movie I liked, he was in, whether it be Clue, Back to the Future, Addams Family, Page Master, every movie I liked, he was in. So he's like my de facto favorite actor of all time. But so I can only imagine. But, Bob Gale must be an interesting figure to talk to and to develop a relationship like, because I mean, the things that we obsess over and that we're such a fan over came from his mind. I mean, did you just sit there and pick his brain sometimes?
Oh yeah, I just and he's always very kind and giving, and gives me a lot of insider information from time to time. But at the same time, he knows not to tell me too much. So I always tease him. I always tease him that I bet he regrets the day he picked up the phone and in his office at Universal 25 years ago, because
Little
here
did
I
he
am
know.
25 years later, still calling him and picking his brain and emailing him. So, but yeah, no, it's a lot of fun to. When I saw him 2 months ago, and we talked about the comic book series that continues to go on, and he gave me a few, little pieces of data of information coming out, what he was working on, and so I talk about it from the business side, because on the merchandising side, he signs off on things and it just kind of goes away, and then months later it kind of shows up on my end, and so I'm kind of several months behind the creation process. And so, one of the things that, especially this year, it's hard on the merchandising side when you've got something like a comic book series. Well, they will announce an issue and put out graphics for one or two covers, usually two covers, a regular cover and an alternate cover, and so a subscription cover. And but sometimes for whatever reasons, once you get that issue comes in, it'll be a different issue, a different cover. And I'm scrambling because I've spent 4 months advertising this is the cover, and to find out that once it shows up here for me to send out to everybody, oh no, the cover's changed. And so I'd said something to him about it. He goes, oh yeah, you can blame me for that. I go, oh, I wasn't blaming anybody for it. So but yeah, it's a lot of fun. But I said, I'm having a hard time keeping up with the covers right now, because one gets solicited and then it gets changed. And so you can blame me for that. We had to change it because this concept didn't appear in this arc and something. Oh, okay. So, but yeah, it's very fun.
So I really want to thank you for your time, and I just got a couple more things before we wrap up.
Sure.
For you, and I know it's hard, it's very hard, but for you, who's your favorite character from the series? There's so many main characters, there's so many bit players, there's so many alternate versions of different people. I mean, according to Bob Gale, one of the alternate versions of the character was inspired by the current president of the United States. So, I mean, who for you is your favorite character from the film?
Well, that is very hard. I think when part one was out and I first saw it, Marty was my favorite. And then as the series progressed, I think Doc Brown became my favorite because of the scientist part, and he invented time travel and so forth. But as I've gotten to know the actors behind the roles, I have to go with Biff in his incarnations, because, like I said, Tom, anytime I'm in the presence of Tom, I leave that experience with my jaws and my face hurting for days, because I have laughed and I have smiled and chuckled for hours upon hours on end with him. That now when I go back and watch the films, I experience it in a whole different fashion, because I'm seeing his character that he plays on film, but I know the human that is on the screen at the same time, and it makes me think of inside jokes we've shared with each other and experiences we've shared with each other and laughs and times we've gone out to dinner and things, just so many things that are wrapped up. And so, I just have to, I so much more identify with enjoying that performance that it's hard for me to separate the character from the actor and the performance now, because I know him so well. So I just have to go with Biff in all those incarnations, even as dark as some of them are and dumb as some of them are. It's just Tom. He's Hollywood's best kept secret, and he's just so incredibly talented, and not just in acting and comedy, but he's, I don't know if you follow me, he's a fantastic writer and a painter and an artist, and he's just he's such a great storyteller, and he's just so incredibly talented. And so when I see his performances on screen, I'm just enjoying that whole experience of knowing him. And so, and at the same time, I've seen other. Tom has told me so many things behind the scenes and stories of during the filming and all. And I'll kind of wrap this up a little over. I guess it was 11 years ago when it was in 2006. We did a screening in Los Angeles at the in Hollywood at the Chinese Theater. We did a back-to-back screening of parts 2 and 3. The year before, we'd done the 20th anniversary screening of part 1 and had 2 screenings at the ArcLight, and they're both shows sold out. Bob was there, Leah, Claudia, Tom, Chris, and just had a great thing. And so we kind of did a sequel a year later and we called it the double back. We did a back-to-back screening of parts 2 and 3. And Bob was there. Tom was not there, but Bob was there. Chris was there, and Neil Canton. And they did a Q&A between the films, and it was very enjoyable, very funny. But what I remember, and this was one of the most, we talked about surreal experiences. Chris Lloyd actually sat in the audience with us and watched part 2 and 3 together with an audience. And he sat one row behind me, and to sit there with one of the actors watching the films has got to be one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had of actually sitting down with an audience. Because to look back at certain points in time throughout the films and seeing him just grin ear to ear and laughing with the audience was just so cool.
I can only imagine.
And especially in part 3, because there's several scenes with Tom and Chris in part 3 that both of them have experienced in interviews, and especially Tom has shared some experiences of working with Chris on part 3, some of the laughs that they had on the set. And I know some of those stories. And so when some of those scenes start showing up, I'm kind of looking over my left shoulder and kind of looking back over at Chris, and I see him just belly laughing at the scene. And I go, oh, I know he's thinking the same thing that I'm thinking of what Tom told him during that scene. And so to actually have one of the actors sit with an audience and sit there and enjoy the films with an entire audience, that was just one of the coolest things. So, but yeah. It's just really cool. It's just really cool.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on Tom Wilson, being, I think you have to see how versatile this guy is. And he was, I think his character and the characters that he played changed more than anybody, really. He's Biff, and then he's kind of tough Biff, and then he's like not so tough Biff, and then he's young Biff, and then he's Griff, and then he's Mad Dog Tannen, and then he, and then he's super powerful, super wealthy Biff. I mean, a lot of different shades to his character. So I mean, he really was the most versatile, and it's good to see that he's like, because I know for a while he wasn't super involved. At least that was the idea from the periphery. He wasn't super involved with the series, and now it's awesome to see that he's doing more Comic-Con appearances and Q&As and being more involved. That's really cool, I think, for a long time.
It is. I'm glad to see him back out there again.
Yeah, for sure. So, Stephen, I mean, I understand now why everyone said that you got to get an interview with Stephen Clarke, because you're a wealth of information, and it's always fun to connect with another fan, especially one who's been, a fan for, since the movies came out, and dedicated a lot of your free time, I'm sure, to putting, to furthering the brand of Back to the Future, and getting us all these cool pieces of merchandise and the website, and keep us up to date with the Twitter. Anything going on in the future you want to talk about before we let you go?
Well, I mean, there's the website continues to go forward. There's still new merchandise that comes out from time to time. Like I mentioned, the comic book series that still comes out monthly. That's almost at 2 years now since it's been going on. At some point, I don't have any inside information, at least nothing that I can share at this time. But the musical, there's still hope of a musical at some point in the future that we hope will finally debut. And there's just still a lot out there. There's several collectibles that are coming out. There's nothing that I've really worked on lately in terms of the merchandise side. I've worked on a lot of merchandise over the years. I've written a lot of the descriptions on the packaging. One of the ones I really enjoyed working on and worked on really in depth about 4 years ago was the Lego DeLorean that came out, and so
Oh man,
I worked with Bob on that. I got to work directly with Lego. They would send me like a prototype kit to put together and go through the instructions and make sure the instructions were accurate. And I made a lot of notes on that. We debated several little topics back and forth on that. And I actually wrote the booklet that's inside there, all the verbiage that's in the booklet that goes along with the instructions. I didn't write the instructions on how to put it together, but I did kind of authenticate that and go through that. So, there's pieces, of collectibles that are out there on shelves. Some of it no longer on shelves. It's no longer manufactured anymore. But there's, I've worked on with some wonderful companies over the years, Sunstar and Welly and, like I said, Lego and Mattel. And just there's so many different pieces that are out there. And that's, like I said, I can look on my shelves here and look at a piece of merchandise or a collectible and go, yeah, that was a lot of fun to work on. And so, or I'll look and go, I could have done a little bit better of a job on that one now. And so, and so it's, I'm a lot of times my own worst critic. I can look back at a piece of work and sometimes be very gratified, very satisfied with it, that I did the very best I could, and it still holds up today. And then I can look back at something and go, "Ooh, boy, I wish I had done that differently." And so, and I think I think that's the greatness of the internet, is because you can continue to let that project evolve. And so, like I said, I'm very excited but continue to work on the website. There's a lot of things that I'm working on. It's just slow going. So I would certainly encourage your listeners, if you're looking for merchandise and collectibles to add to your collection, we'd love to have you go on our website and order directly from us instead of Amazon or wherever you get them from. We're very comparable on pricing and very competitive. And so, like I said, 100% of sales goes towards keeping the website going. And so we continue to get out there from time to time and do conventions. I'm trying to line some up for later this year. I'm hoping to get out and do some more shows. I don't tend to do a whole lot of those, but I always do the DeLorean show every 2 years, and then anytime that I can get in with a show that's got some of the Back to the Future actors at. So just to kind of make it a really good tie-in. I've made the mistake before of showing up at a convention that had no other Back to the Future tie-in whatsoever, and you hear crickets chirping. And so I've made it a rule that I don't go do any show that doesn't have some other kind of Back to the Future tie-in. So, but just continue to watch the website for future news and events and merchandise. There's a lot still on the horizon left to come. We're by no means done with this thing. So I'm hoping that we'll continue to do this thing for many, many more years.
Man, one thing I wanted to ask you, I know I said we were wrapping it up, but it was, you mentioned the DeLorean shows. I'm trying to get one going here in Houston because, DeLorean headquarters is here in Houston, Texas, a little outside of Houston.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get something going over there. So keep your ear to the street for me if you hear anything about a DeLorean show in Houston. But the question I wanted to ask you was, out of all the collectibles that you've worked on, that you've been a fan for nearly as long as the movies have been a thing, right? And there's been collectibles to collect. What is your most prized Back to the Future possession?
Well, over the years, I have owned a lot of the movie props.
Oh, wow.
The actual costumes and artifacts that were actually used in the films or the production. I've owned scripts, and most of those things are not in my collection anymore because, sometimes times get tough and you have to sell things to pay the bills. And so that has happened many, many times throughout the last 25 years. But there's been at one point I owned all of the continuity Polaroids for all three films. That they take I don't even know if they do that anymore certainly not with Polaroids, but back when the films were done, when they're shooting a shot like with the family sitting down at the dinner table, they take photos of what was on the plate and where was the plate position and how full was this glass and who sat where. And so I had all that kind of stuff, and there was a lot of great, unique, one-of-a-kind photos among those. But unfortunately, I don't own those anymore. But the one thing that I still own to this day was the very first prop that I bought. I'm pretty sure it's the only one I still have in my collection today. Is actually from your favorite of the three films. I have a map of Hill Valley from Part 3, and it's not the actual one that you see in the train station that Marty and Doc are pointing to, but it's a prototype of it. It's one of only 2 known copies of that map. So there was the one you see in the film, and then I've got the original prototype, full size, and it's framed and it's on the wall here in my office. And the only difference between the one you see on the film, the finished film, and the one that I have is my copy has a dotted line across Shonash Ravine, whereas in the film it's just a blank. And I guess my understanding was that on film it was hard to tell that was a dotted line. It looked a little bit more of a solid line, so they just took the whole line just to make sure that you understood there is no bridge there.
Yeah.
And so my map has a dotted line showing where the planned bridge was. And it has not been fully aged like the one in the movie. But it's the same size, has all the same markings. It actually tells you the precise location of the fictional Hill Valley based upon other cities that are on that map. And so that's not, it's one of a kind. And I would say that's probably the most prized possession I've got. Everything's got a price if somebody's looking to add it to their collection. But I've got full scale theatrical standees. I'm sitting right here in my office looking at those full size 7-foot tall standees from parts 2 and 3. They're in my office, and just the walls are lined with posters and merchandise and everything. I've got one of the original Data East pinball machines here in the corner. And so, it's been a long journey, but yeah, everything that I've ever worked on, whether it was the website or the newsletter or a collectible, anything like that, I'm always very proud to have been involved with, to whatever degree it may have been, even if it was just promoting it online or writing a few liner notes or supplying a picture, or even some of the documentaries that came out 2 years ago.
The Back in Time documentary.
Yeah, the Back in Time documentary. I actually sat down for an interview, and I'm in that. I can't stand to watch myself on film, but I have had a good time. I have had a good time telling people, "Oh yeah, I'm in a movie with Michael J. Fox and Steven Spielberg." So, but I was in that, and then the Out of Time documentary on the refurbishing of the DeLorean time machine. I'm not in it, but I actually filmed provided some footage, backlot footage of an event that Bob Gale and I were involved with. It actually took place when the Nikes came out in 2011. That I shot on the back lot at Universal, and so they used some of my footage in that. So even when it's just something like that, you look back and go, yeah, that was fun to do. So it's very gratifying, and just the fact that people continue here 32 plus years later continue to talk about Back to the Future. And like I said, when I see it on TV, I always get family members or friends, "Hey, your movie's on TV."
Yeah, I get tweets all the time.
Tell me something I don't know. It's a lot of fun.
Man. Well, I thank you so much for carving out, an hour plus to talk to us on the show today. I really appreciate it. Your wealth of information, and I'm sure this isn't the last time we cross paths. I'm sure we'll cross paths.
Well, I hope not. I hope we'll next time you're in Decatur, Alabama, come.
I need to stop by. I need to stop by.
We'll have to get together. So I appreciate the call and the opportunity to be on the show today.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I'll be in contact.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much.
All right,
we'll see you in the future.
All right, see you in the future. Thank you.